Greetings to you. I hope you are doing well by God's grace. And today we have our word and our people. And our strand for today is our nation Ghana. Sub-strand is being a citizen. But today we're going to look at domestic violence and conflicts in the family. But basically we're talking about domestic violence. So by the end of today's lesson, we'll be able to define or explain domestic violence and as well identify a couple of types of domestic violence, okay, or identify at least 4 types of domestic violence, okay. Now when we talk about domestic means the home, okay. We are referring to the home, and violence is an action that causes pain, injury or distraction, okay, and these may lead to conflicts, okay, in the home. So we're talking about domestic violence. So domestic violence is an aggressive behavior within the home, okay. But before we quickly move deeply into today's lesson, let's go through the keywords that we have for today. Our keywords for today are domestic, violence, individual, aggressive, injury. Let's quickly go through the words one more time, and this time around I would like you to say the words after me, okay, as we normally do. Domestic, violence, individual, aggressive, injury. Thank you very much. Now let's continue or keep the ball rolling from where we were talking about domestic violence. So domestic violence is an aggressive behavior within the home, okay, an aggressive behavior within the home, or we can say that it is an abuse by one person against another in the home. Or we can as well say that domestic violence is any act a member of a family commits against another member of the same family which causes pain and injury to the victim, to the victim. And this pain could be mental or physical, could be psychological as well, okay. So the victim over here is the one the pain is meted on, or the person who is going through the pain. The domestic violence actually can happen between parents and children, between siblings, and perhaps maybe those that you live in the same house with, maybe a house help or anybody related to you in one way or the other. I believe you are clear with it. So you might have heard maybe in your community or wherever place you find yourself, maybe from your friends, maybe someone that you know, that maybe a man has beaten maybe the wife, okay, has beaten the wife, or maybe an elderly brother has beaten maybe the younger sister or brother, okay. So that can be referred to as domestic violence, not just beating per se, but perhaps insulting the person or assaulting the person, maybe passing ill words or derogatory statements against the person intentionally. That can be referred to as domestic violence. So as we said, that domestic violence is an act, okay, committed by a family member or by a relative against another member of the same family which causes pain and injury to the victim, okay. All right, so let's quickly look at the types of domestic violence.
Domestic abuse is often a hidden crime happening behind closed doors. Unfortunately, it is so embedded in the daily lives of some that victims and perpetrators may not realize such behavior is abusive.
Domestic abuse does not discriminate. Anyone can be a victim or perpetrator, people of any gender, any sexuality, and from all walks of life.
Until victims are aware that there is a safe environment to share their concerns, they will continue to hold on to the secret of domestic abuse.
Domestic abuse takes many forms and is about power and control.
Verbal abuse,
Controlling you, financial abuse,
sexual abuse, and physical abuse.
We recognize that victims may have concerns that prevent them from speaking out or seeking help. You have the right to feel safe. Help is out there. You are not on your own. Tell someone.
Domestic abuse is a crime, and police are here to listen and to work with our partners to protect you.
You will be treated with dignity and respect. If you report a crime, the police will act on this.
The types of domestic violence. Now we have physical abuse, we have sexual abuse, we have that of verbal abuse, okay? So, and emotional as well as economic abuse. So we'll be looking at these types as we move on, okay? So I said we have what? Physical abuse, we have verbal abuse, we have sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and economic abuse. So these are types of domestic violence. So let's quickly take them one after the other, okay? Now when we talk about physical abuse, physical abuse is the most recognizable form of domestic violence, okay? It is one of the types or forms that we usually hear or normally hear, okay? And it involves the use of force against the victim, okay? And these ends up causing injury or pain to the fellow. So example is what? Punching, kicking the person, stabbing the person, shooting, slapping, and preventing the person from getting maybe foodstuffs or perhaps rest, shelter, and the likes, okay? And in other words, subjecting the person to future and inhuman subjecting the person to perhaps torture and inhuman treatment, okay? All right, so let's move on to the next one. The next one is verbal abuse. This is the practice of using one's speech to cause pain to another intentionally, okay? So verbal abuse is causing what? Hurt and pain to someone through a person's speech. So for example, when maybe a brother or a sister of yours insults you intentionally, we can describe that as what? A domestic violence, okay? So verbal abuse includes insults, gossips, and etc., okay, that cause pain to people. So because if someone insults you or gossips about you and later you get to know, it's very, very painful, and mostly as I said, we're talking about domestic violence, so it is an art in the home, okay? So as I said, so when you tell someone where is that hurts the person or the fellow in your family or in the home, you are abusing that fellow. I believe you are clear with it. Now let's move on to our next one, that is on sexual abuse. Now the sexual abuse, this involves forcing to have let me say sexual intercourse with someone without his or her approval, his or her consent, okay? Maybe this sexual abuse could be rape, it could be sexual harassment or defilement, okay? So rape is forcing to have sex with a person without his or her consent or permission. So for example, when a man or a woman is forced to have sex against his or her will, okay, against his or her will, or without the other person's consent or permission, we call it what? Rape, okay? You forcing the person. Now let's move on. Sexual harassment refers to unwelcome sexual acts to a person. So when someone touches the other fellows, maybe, let me excuse my words, breasts or buttocks and what have you, without the person's consent, we are harassing the person sexually. You got it? So our next one is economic abuse. This involves depriving a person of money or financial support which he or she is entitled to by law. Okay, so when you deprive, when a member of a family deprives someone of what he or she is entitled to in the same family, that person is abusing the person economically. So this also involves threatening or destroying one's property in which another person has an interest. Okay, so when you destroy someone's property that it belongs, let's say something that belongs to your dad or your mom, and someone, let's say your uncle or your auntie, destroys it, okay, is an economic abuse. You are abusing the person that's abused maybe your mom or your dad economically. All right, so let's move on to our next one, that is emotional abuse. This involves any behavior that make another person feel unhappy. So when the person feels unhappy, so emotional abuse is when a person does something to affect the feelings of another. Okay, your emotions could be good or bad. So when your emotions are good, okay, are good, then it means you are fine. But when your emotions are bad, okay, or you are in a bad mood, it means what? You are not fine. So one may also cause the other person or fellow in the same family by causing harm to that person emotionally. It could be maybe the person can insult you, because when someone insults you, it affects you emotionally. When somebody does something that you don't like, it affects you emotionally. So this involves any behavior that makes another person feel unhappy, miserable, afraid, depressed, or better still inadequate. Okay, inadequate. So please, I would like to use this privilege to entreat or encourage each and every one of us, if we want to live a peaceable life, a life that is worth living, we must we must not involve ourselves in domestic violence, must not involve ourselves in acts that will bring conflicts in our families or in our various homes. Okay, so please and please, let's eschew or avoid domestic violence, the aggressive behavior within the home. Okay, so let's quickly wrap up. We've learned that domestic violence is any act a member of a family, okay, commits against another member of the same family which causes pain and injury to the victim. And we made mention of the types of domestic violence. We said we have what? Verbal abuse, we have sexual abuse, we have physical abuse, we have emotional abuse, as well as what? Economical or economic abuse. Okay, so on these notes, I wish you the very best of luck, and we call it a day. Bye bye.